Hey community, before we get into this new month, which will be fully under the light of Matrescence, we wanted to let you know that during the summer, we reached two goals that Eva and I had set for ourselves for this podcast. We surpassed the 500 followers on all the podcast platforms combined and over 10,000 downloads of our episodes. I mean, this is pretty amazing. And this is where you can come in again to help us out. We have high hopes for the rest of the year and we want to hit 1,000 followers and 15,000 downloads by the end of the year. This means we have 4 full months left on our hands to achieve this goal. And how can you support us? You can help us by sharing your favorite episodes with your community, making sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram under Damn Parenting Podcast, and make sure that you give us a rating on any podcast platform that you subscribe. Make sure that the word is spread within your community. And if you have enjoyed any of the topics we've covered in over our 100 episodes, go and hit the 5-star rating and comment if you can. Get on YouTube and hit the subscribe button and share. Make sure that we get into the conversation of your WhatsApp groups, your Facebook groups, the events that you're at, or with any casual conversation you're having with another parent. Thank you so much for all the support that you've given us so far. And we aim to continue our mission on shedding light on the Dutch medical system, the parenting journey we all go through, talking about the hidden awkward topics many refuse to do, and give voice to our community so you know where you can get information and helpful tips. Thank you so much for your support, and let's jump right into the next helpful episode. Hey everyone, and welcome back to Damn Parenting, your English-speaking parenting podcast from Amsterdam. And we're your hosts, Maren and
Eva.
And this is the last episode to close off our month of Matrescence. So we wanted to use this episode to do a little recap of the episodes that we have recorded with Harriet, who was giving us her personal insight into her Matrescence journey for the first 6 months after she had her baby. We brought Dr. Naomi back to talk about the psychological effects and shifts, switching your identity shift basically in motherhood, and how we can view it under the umbrella of Matrescence and what the psychological effects are. And then, of course, we had our lovely Ilena back, where we picked up the topic of body image and how it relates to Matrescence, and had a really heartfelt, deep, honest, raw conversation with her about how we can find peace with our body images when we become mothers, and how we can be gentle and soft with us in that transition. So these were the angles, and of course, focus of this podcast
Don't forget about the book.
Oh yes, Jesus. And of course, we discussed the Bible, Matrescence by Lucy Jones. Yes, thank you. We also did that. And I hope that by already this selection of people, you know that our main mission with this podcast is to bring the experts on to talk about these topics. So we brought the experts within our community on. And of course, we tried to reach out for many, many months, because this month of Matrescence has been in the planning for many, many months already, to reach out to international experts on this topic. We have found one researcher in Australia, which we were in contact with. But as you might imagine, it's very, very hard to arrange calls with them. And at the end of the day, we were not able to nail another expert from outside of our community down to sit down with us and talk. We're still on the tail of the Australian research, which Eva will tell you a little more about her research, how we even popped up with, or how we even got to know of her. So just that this last episode is for us then kind of chatting about what was our experience with this month, also in preparation of it. How it also got us to dive a little deeper into our own Matrescence journey and reflecting back on what we've gone through, reflecting what's still ahead of us, and just finding more and more peace and in being in tune with this process and taking it day by day, and how we can view our own journey under this lens of Matrescence. Full stop. Here's your mini podcast.
That's a mouthful. For anyone listening, obviously it's autumn right now, and I've come down with a cold. So I'm amazed I still have a voice, but this topic was really important, I think, for both of us since, like, even starting this podcast, we were like, we have to help out all the international families. This is a good resource. We'll get all the experts in. But then it was like, a lot of it was a case of, I think it's a lot of Naomi episodes as well, is like the overwhelmingness, the overload, all of these things was like, why is it always on us? And then the comparisons and talking to like our male friends and, our partners and just being like, hey, and no one else understands us except other mothers. And this is why it becomes this clique. And it's like, oh, it's this motherhood gang. But equally, it's a case of motherhood is always painted in these picturesque, beautiful movies and TV shows. And yes, you might see someone stressed out, but hey, it's okay. You can manage. Or even worse, oh, it's okay. Just knock to your mother next door. She'll come and mind the kids. You guys can go off for a romantic weekend. And it's like, oh, we don't have that. And so I think there's so many different angles on that we were like, okay, we got to do a full Matrescence. And then, as you said, like for the last few months, trying to figure out who can we talk to, who can we get in, and being like, oh, this is really not spoken about, or it's not understood. It's not researched. I mean, the name came up 50 odd years ago, and people are only actually literally knowing about it in the last 10 years. I mean, it's phenomenal. So, I mean, it's such a magnificent change in our lives. It should be a celebratory occasion that we should all be embracing. Not just, oh, you're becoming a mother, but it's like, oh, your whole body is changing, your brain is changing, like physical and like all the aspects that are going to come with it. And so that's why this month was so super important to showcase our own community, but equally trying to bring more experts on. And that's why we're closing this month off, I guess, with just our own aspects of what we've gathered from our conversations with Elizabeth at the book club and Harriet, Ilena, and Naomi, and our own learnings.
Yeah.
It's also I was going to say, I can definitely say that like my kickoff of this month was that book. It was just furious. I was just angry.
Yeah. But it was also interesting really seeing all these different journeys and how same, but different, kind of how we all go through similar things, but then yet they're so different because we are, of course, our own personalities and we bring our own baggage and we bring our own stuff. But just seeing this bond and seeing this is what we go through. And I kind of like this whole point of I see you and I acknowledge that, and I can cut myself some slack and I can cut you some slack, and we can all be a little more graceful with each other. That's what it for sure did for me when I just view the world a little different. Like when I'm walking outside and I see a mother and I'm like, is she aware? If not, let me help you. Like, it's okay. Like just like I want to be like, you're going through this. It's okay. Like, you're not failing. It's totally normal. Like, to kind of wake them up. And so now when I have someone, who's pregnant, I have a colleague who's pregnant, and I said to her, here are the episodes. Listen to this. This is a book I can really recommend. Like, I want as many mothers to know about this, to understand that they are okay and that it's okay to go through this. And yeah, it's just, I feel like I want to like shout this from the rooftops. And how is it, but also not just for the mothers, but also for the partners, to make them understand what's going on and to understand it as a couple. This is going on because I mean, I don't need to remind everyone how high are divorce rates in the first year of having a baby, and then let alone the second one. Like, those numbers are just rising, of course, because it's a new thing, like having a child, of course. But then I wonder if it was a common knowledge that this process is going on also by partners, if that would change something, if people would be understanding more, like, okay, it's all right. Like, how can I support her? How can I support myself? How can we work this out as a couple and not see something changed and it's broken and we don't understand what it is?
I think it's also, though, we don't have enough information. So it's kind of like the blind leading the blind. So it's just mothers who've been there through it, who can share the information of, look, you're going to feel lost, you're going to feel bedraggled, and you're going to see this mom who's like kitted out head to toe at the school gates, looking absolutely perfect and heading off. And you just feel like you're the comparison, which is like the absolute devil in parenthood. But it's just the fact that, like, the research, so you mentioned earlier about this research. So basically, I found this research paper, and the title is called Matrescence, The Lifetime Impact of Motherhood on Cognition and the Brain. And it was headed by a Edwina Orchard in Melbourne, Australia. And so the reason why I was so intrigued about this was because it is a case of like in the paper itself, it says, despite the ubiquity of motherhood, the enduring impact of caregiving on cognition and the brain across the lifespan is not well characterized and represents a unique window of opportunity to investigate human neural and cognitive development, which AKA is no one's done this research. That's basically it. Yeah. And so as much, and like exactly like you said, it's like, it's so important for us to understand matrescence. And as we've said, like matrescence is not the equivalent of, but it's similar to adolescence.
Yeah.
But it's so important that our partners know this as well. And it's just, and it's such a conversation piece. And so as much as you can go to those lactation courses and, you know, getting ready for giving birth classes, this is a great topic to be kind of going, you know, there's going to be sleep deprivation like you don't understand. There's going to be hormone shifts. Like day 4 is like the lowest drop of your hormones ever in your life as a woman. And you're meant to be okay and get on with that still with the newborn and be happy. And God forbid you have guests coming over to your house. Things like that, that it's like, we really need to be so much more passionate with each other and graceful and giving ourselves permission to say no and giving ourselves time. As much as we kind of spoke about that during our own time when we gave birth years ago, and we were like, you know, how do you do this and how do you do this? And we were there for each other. It's still not enough because there still was some comparison. And I think there was still a lot of the guilt and the unknowingness. And you just feel so lost. But at the same time, that WhatsApp message group that we had, like, I mean, it made such an impact for us. The fact that we were all comrades, like in this together. And we were all, you know, I don't know if people know the term trauma bonding. Like that's when you work in an office usually and you all hate the boss or whatever it is. But it's kind of like that, what we went through. Yeah. And it's kind of like we come out the other side and we're like, yeah, but we have that with all mothers now, you know, because we've all been through it. So it's kind of hard, but the research really was just looking about integrating the insights from the human and animal maternal brain. And it's basically trying to cause a framework. So it's basically setting up for future studies that can use this as a base. So I really wanted to get Winnie to come on and really have a discussion about what she found and how she found it, because at the end of the day, it talks about the increased cognitive load, which we all very much know because you've got a baby that you're up all night. You're trying to figure out, are they hungry? Do they need to poop themselves? Is it gas? Then they're going into the toddlers and the frustration and the tantrums. But then it goes into the continuous adaptation. So our brain and the neuroplasticity of our brain has to constantly evolve. And how exhausting is that for us? This is like sustained throughout the lifespan.
Yeah. And then when you go into this, not only have this process going on, but you might be breastfeeding, you might be not sleep, like you have all these factors on top of this, and then you know why you're so exhausted. One thing that I also wanted to add was that while I was thinking more about this, diving more into this topic and then also educating others about it or talk about it, is that I wish that in the future, the more and more we talk about these things and these psychological and identity shifts impacts, the less we spend our time researching what is the healthiest chair for our babies to sit in, what is the best pram, that we stop putting our energy into this and the hours of research into products and see how are we surviving as a couple? How are we dividing the mental load? How are we doing the care work? How, like these topics that we need to address, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what pram you have, but it does matter. Have you had the conversation with your partner about sharing the care work? That's going to have a bigger impact on your happiness and on the healthiness of both your baby and you. So I wish that this whole focus of, what are the products? What are the outside
tangible products?
All this stuff and the hours and the money that we put into this, we take to a therapist, we take to a counselor, we take to a coach, whatever it is, someone who educates us about this stuff. How can we research about child brain development? How can we, like these kind of things that we really need to understand, because it helps my baby more if I understand what cognitive changes and cognitive development are going through, emotional development, other than is this the best romper quality? Is this the best shoe? Are the feet going to be deformed? I can tell you it's probably going to have a bigger impact if you're emotional deformed than if your foot needs a little treatment. So like, I'm just like putting it, let's focus on these things where we feel this impact so much because it strikes us to the core. It strikes us to our personality, to our identity, to our relationships. So that's my hope for the future, that it becomes more of a topic of conversations with people who see, all right, this is where we need to put the energy and the attention.
To go back to the time matter that you mentioned there was research that said the amount of time that the average mother in first world countries spends with their child each day has actually doubled in the last 60 years. Even though the women, some women are out working or whatever they're doing, but it says men today do as much care as women did 50 years ago. So even though we're thinking like, well, the world's a lot better and, I don't know why you're stressing out because they had it a lot harder. The other element we have is like, we still have to upkeep this and we still have to do this. But equally, right now in 2024, it's information overload. The thing we've spoken about before is, the overwhelm and the resentment and everything that goes around with it is because it's like, it's all on us. And it's like this aspect that our brain now is not our brain for us. Our brain is now for us and the baby. And so we have to do everything. And because we've grown that child, now we are responsible. And so what school are they going to go to? Exactly. What shoes, all this kind of, that becomes our thing.
Yeah.
And then this whole thing then goes into then the partner, well, why aren't you doing it? But it's also to do with this whole neuroplasticity is like our brain becomes not I, but we or they.
Yeah.
So if someone says to you, how are you? You'll go, oh yeah, my baby slept through the night. She's doing great. And it's like, no. How are you?
Yeah.
And so there's this whole thing that I think we just need to comprehend a lot more and be more graceful with ourselves, that we need to understand that a lot more. And I think it's really hard, especially for people who aren't going to be mothers now, who aren't researching this, but for the older generation who are trying to explain to them, like, I'm going to have my baby. This is the support I need. And they're like, oh, nonsense. You don't need that. And you're trying to explain to them, actually, I need this. It's already hard enough trying to explain to your families, I need a doula because I just need that support. And they're like, I didn't need it. And it's like, it's nothing to do with you. It's this whole aspect of us being international families as well, is kind of like we don't have the lockdown support of our family and friends so close to us as well. Yeah. I think anyway, like it's such a key element to our matrescence for our audience that we're directing this to. We're talking about matrescence, but also we really want to bring in that aspect of the fact that our families aren't here. And how is that also an additional aspect to our cognitive changes with our neuroplasticity, because we can't rely on our family and friends. And then that adds to stresses of how do I talk to my partner because I don't have the backup of my family and maybe I just need to go along with my partner. It brings in like such a different fold of conversations, I guess.
Also the emotional impact of it, when I'm constantly in a state of missing someone, I'm longing for this, like the homesickness or whatever. It's always on our shoulders, and so it always goes with us and always has this extra note to it, I guess. I also hope, and this is when I'm watching my daughter grow up to be, I don't know, maybe a woman, who knows what she will pick to be. Just when I'm like imagining her being a mother one day or being in the spot of making the decision, am I going to have a family? Am I going to have children? Making an educated choice and ultimately then having happier children because we have happier mothers, It's like, if we know, okay, do I want to go through this change? Do I feel, and then it's not, we're just blindly going in because we have this narrative sold of everything will be okay and you will have a child and it's going to be a fulfillment. And then we're there and then we have this phenomenon of regretting motherhood, which is not regretting my children, not loving my children, but it is a significant number of women speaking up about this topic when they say, if I would have only known, then no, because I'm suffering so much under this change. I love my children, and at the same time, I'm suffering so much. And if I would have known. So this is the thing where I also hope that if we talk more about this, then women or people who can bear children can make, of course, you can never make this educated guess because it's like, you just don't know how it is until you live it, until you feel it. But you can, the more you read about stories, like we read birth stories, right? If we haven't given birth, we cannot possibly imagine how it is because we have never been under these circumstances. But yet, how helpful is it to read these birth stories, to just get an idea of it? And so I hope this is happening also with Matrescence, that people read about it and educate themselves, make, okay, is this something that I can picture myself doing? Is this something that I can picture myself, or where can I get the support that I can have a better and easier time with it, and ultimately be more at peace with myself, be happier with me, be a better parent, be a more patient, like just it reflects back on the child and ultimately then benefits society, I guess.
So what you just said there reminds me of something I saw, and it was basically anyone could be a parent, but to be an actual parent, like I am a parent, not like, oh yeah, I've got kids or whatever, but I am a parent. It's a statement to say I am doing the utmost for my child. And I think, some people are kind of like, oh yeah, I'll have a child. And like, when you meet them 6 months down the line, they're like, I did not know it was going to be like this. And the detriment to your relationship or the sleep deprivation or the impact it has on your job. And, people educate themselves to get a job and then they strive and they work really hard to get those promotions. But yet with our children who are continuously changing, we have so much to do with that. But equally, it's a case of, yes, you can see a child physically grow and change and hear them. But as a mother, we don't have that. We just have it going on in our brains and we have the hormones, which is not seeable, So the thing is, there's so much unseen. And it's like, you always say about things like depression. If I have a broken leg, you can see that and you'll say, how are you? And okay, you need to heal. But with depression, you can't. And, it's one of those things. And with Matrescence, it's a case of you could put all your effort into my child growing up and having the right things and, studying to see what's the latest things to be done or things to do. But at Matrescence, as you say, it's a case of it's the empowerment of knowledge and the constant conversations and the development and being open and educating yourself and being receptive to other people's experiences that might not be your own, but that you're open to hold space for them as well. To be like, okay, I hear you and I see you. And, sometimes we don't get that from the people we really would like them to give it to us. But if we can find it in another, who may be another mother, I think that's the greatest gift we can give each other right now, because we're kind of in like the dark ages, the stone ages here in Matrescence, and trying to kind of educate ourselves and get the intelligence and the understanding and the research and like really get this knowledge out there into the world to be kind of like, this is what's happening to our brain. This is what's happening to our hormones. Like now, let's be more passionate and compassionate as well with mothers on this. Yeah. For example, the maternity leave for work, the paternity leave for work, any of those different aspects, I guess.
Yeah, so these were our thoughts on the month of Matrescence with the different episodes that we had on. If you haven't listened to them yet, then you can go on our Spotify, where you will find all these episodes in our library of many, many episodes that we have recorded over all the different topics regarding parenting as an expat in Amsterdam, not only the psychological side of it, with Dr. Naomi, but also the hard facts. What is this? How does this work? If you never want to miss an episode, then make sure that you subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. And make sure that you follow us on Instagram, Damn Parenting Podcast, because this is where we have lots more of information. We'll feature everyone who's on for the next week. You will have a cheat sheet about all the episodes, and you will just find a lot more helpful information that is additional to the episodes that are on all these platforms. Anything to add to Matrescence from your side, Eva?
I hope everyone checked out the show notes from Dr. Naomi, because she had a journaling exercise. So make sure you click on the episode and go into the show notes. And because there are some questions there, which I think are actually a really good thing to, when you've got a moment to sit down and actually journal with. I guess for me with Matrescence, the book made me angry. It brings up those questions that it's only when someone starts talking about it that you start to question then. And I think that's the thing, why are there no baby changing facilities and playgrounds or, all these stupid questions that you're like, yeah, that makes sense. It really also opened up my eyes to part of my Matrescence as well, is like all these questions that I have that I feel are shut down by society, that it's like, well, you just don't ask that, or you just get over it. And it's such a blanketed feeling that I have these questions and it's like, oh, but you don't ask that, or you just get on with it. Don't be a trouble. Don't cause, don't, like, people are going to look at you if you ask this stupid question. And it's just a real, like, I just want now people to ask the questions and to have the bravery and to also know someone that they can ask these questions to. And, this ends up in a political way of, this is where your vote matters as well.
Yeah. Nothing to add from my side. Make sure that you share this episode with the people who need to hear about Matrescence, the people who need to educate themselves in hindsight or are going through the process soon enough when they're giving birth. So if you have anyone being pregnant or also want to understand a little bit more about your own change and reflect on this, especially with the journaling episode. And I think you also, Eva, we have another like short journaling episode out for this month, right?
After Ilena, there was one called Expand Your Horizons, which we did a short recording with the questions. You can find it also on expandyourhorizons.org. It's an excellent way to journal for your mental health as it would be.
All right, so let's close this chapter off for now. So we have built up a good library about this topic. And of course, this conversation is never ending and we will pick it up throughout the next couple of months, couple of weeks. It will always be on our radar. And if you want to reach out to us, please make sure that you drop us a line on Instagram, Damn Parenting Podcast, or damnparentingpodcast@gmail.com, where you can get in touch with us if you have something to contribute to this topic or any other topic where you think it's worth an episode, it's worth that our community here of international parents hear about these things that you have to share. Then make sure you get in contact with us and talk about us. Bring us into your conversations with your friends, in your WhatsApp groups, your Facebook groups, your coffee chats on the playground, that Damn Parenting is accessible to as many people as possible. That was it. And we will hear you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.